Welcome, everybody, to another episode of RockerMike and Rob Presents. Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Bowery Apfel. He is a New York City famous bass player. We're going to talk about him and some of the bands he's been in. Also, he is in charge of next week's Walter Law Memorial Tribute at Bowery Electric. We're going to talk about that and how everybody can see that. It's going to be streamed. Say hello, Barry.
Yeah, hey, good evening. Hey, everybody in the podcast universe.
Is this your first podcast, Barry?
I believe so. I believe so.
All right. Well, I'm honored, man.
Hopefully, well, thank you. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Me. Hopefully I'm wearing the right shoes for this.
Oh, well, yeah, it's virtual. Everybody can imagine what shoes you got on. Doesn't matter.
You know what's crazy? You're probably gonna get a bunch of people for Switzerland, lovers, and Sweden.
Oh, wow!
We for some reason we are huge in Sweden. We're top 40.
Wow!
On Apple Podcast charts.
Wow! The Sweden is for the New York Dolls, Heartbreakers, Family.
Yeah. Johnny too. Thunders, yeah.
Well, when I first started playing with Walter, not to jump to it, in '83, after I graduated college, we had a tour to Sweden and Finland. It never happened, but that's what, he goes, me and Charlie, who is the drummer, he said, learn the songs, get clothes, and get a passport. We're going to Sweden and Finland. It never happened, but yeah. But then it was like Johnny was there, Billy Rath was there, Jerry was there, and everyone had Swedish wives or girlfriends.
Was that the famous Thunders tour where he went to Sweden? I think he got in trouble for something, had to leave the country.
The video doesn't look good.
Yeah.
It looks like he's wearing those polka dots. It looks like he's wearing pajamas. But, mine would have been different because it would have been separate from Thunders. But it was around a year or two from that, but it was honestly a big disappointment for me because you tell everybody in the neighborhood I was this neighborhood kid, and I'm a rock star now. I'm going to Sweden and Finland with Walter Law, and
wow.
And then I basically, when it didn't happen, luckily Walter kept us, and that's how the Waldos started. But you don't want to. I didn't want to. I was ashamed because you brag about something and it didn't happen, so. We were going to Sweden and Finland. I told everybody in the world that. And then months later, when I finally, went out of my house again, they'd say, "Hey, Barry, how was Switzerland?" And I go, "It wasn't Switzerland. And we didn't go anyway." But, that's life.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's give a little of your pedigree here, okay? Because you played with quite a few people. You're the original bass player to the Waldos, right? You also played with Didi Ramone and the Spiky Tops. That was a band Didi had after he left the Ramones. You've also been in the Weapons, the High Ministers, the Skelekasters, the XWrays, Rays with a W, like the fish.
X, like Link Ray, because we were an instrument.
Like Link Ray. Oh, excellent, even better. And then you also played with Joey Image, the ex-Misfits.
Yeah, down here. Yeah, Joey was a great close friend. And, another one, tragically, an unusually good guy. He was a rough exterior. Yeah. And, but, if anyone knew him, he was the kindest person. I was he'd give you the shirt off his back that he didn't have because he wasn't, the Misfits, they played the Garden a couple of years ago when they're wealthy.
That was last year. We were there on 2019. He wasn't resentful. He wasn't bitter that he didn't have a penny. And the thing is, if that happened to me, I would be bitter. Well, yeah, there was a lot of benefit shows, I think, for Joey. He did get some help from fans and things, but he did struggle.
He wasn't a wealthy man, and we all make decisions that we have to live with and die with, and but the thing, the Undead played it. That which was a very tough. I expedited that coming to terms thing because they had Bobby hated him for years.
Yeah,
and I was supposed to go, but I unfortunately got sick. He was going to stay with me in my old apartment, but I ended up flying up Joey, and I wasn't allowed to travel. It ended up being a false positive for me. with my medical stuff. But I felt bad that I couldn't go up there, and I would have played then with the Skelekasters. But at least Joey got to play with the Undead a couple of songs, and it really was very helpful for him.
Yeah. You mentioned the Undead. We about 2 summers ago we interviewed Bobby and Diana on their boat. They have a boat that they park off in Nyack around that area somewhere, and very cool, wonderful people. I've stayed friends with them. Let's go back in time, Barry. Okay, you're a New York City guy. You're from Queens.
Yeah, I lived. I lived in Sunnyside till 6th grade, and then Bayside until I moved to Florida. Bayside from 25 years, and then I moved to Florida in '95. But until last year, I had a place in Manhattan until for 15 years. So I hardly left.
I hear you. Back and forth. Did what made you pick up the bass? Did you play guitar first and move to bass, or what did you do?
I was forced to take piano lessons, which I hated. I wanted to play. I played sports, and that's all I wanted to do. But I loved music. And then, like around college time, which is like the late '70s, I'm a pharmacist. I was at St. John's in the pharmacy school, and I was commuting, living at home. And I always liked music, but when the punk rock thing came, it was like, wow, this is something amazing and accessible, and you don't have to be a genius to pick up an instrument. And I like, the bass seemed easier, which it is, and to start. And I wanted to be like Dee Dee, and I wanted to be like Sid Vicious. And they were, I thought they were the best you could. They were great. They were cool. They were young, and they made it like fun.
Sure.
And that's what music should be, where it shouldn't be intimidating, and you don't have to know, really anything except to have an instrument. And, it's like
I agree.
It's like a sport. It's like, if you go to a schoolyard with a basketball and they say, oh, I can't slam dunk. And it's like, well, you don't have to. You could do a layup or whatever. It's like, people are snobs in music when it really comes down to it, but they don't have to be. There's like these sects, and like like this page, and it's only rockabilly, and I love rockabilly, and it's only
Me too.
these dance music, and it's only 70s whatever. It's like Max's Kansas City to me was the greatest place in the world, because whatever was going on at that time played there. And I thought, I was under the impression everyone was punk rock, but I saw Crazy Cabin, Teddy Boy rockabilly band that influenced me for the last 40 years. And it's like, it wasn't, oh, what are these old British guys doing here? Well, because they could play and they're great. And, but it didn't fit like a mold. And that's, I think that.
Well, Cheap Trick played Max's. A lot of people don't know.
Well, everybody did it.
Everybody went through there.
It was, it was a great place. It was a nice place. Obviously everybody likes to talk about the bathroom at CBGB's, but Max's was a better club. It was nicer. It's like, unfortunately I never played there, but, CB's was a great place to play, but Max's had some, the Heartbreakers, Heartbreakers live at Max's. I was at one of those shows the nights they recorded it. They were, It was, they had a lot of great bands come in and out of there, and cool people hanging out, and it doesn't get the recognition because people don't wear Max's Kansas City T-shirts.
I do.
Yeah, I do too. Well,
I got one.
we're defying fashion norms.
Yeah. Well, CBGB's was around a lot longer. Okay. And you okay?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. CBGB's was around, a lot longer than Max's, and I think it just kind of like once Max's went away, it took over that whole genre.
But I will say,
but you're right.
Both of the, I never played Max's, but CB's, I remember like my first gig, a guy I was playing with who was already in bands, and he said, you guys are ready. Let me get you a gig. And, I had no idea how to go about that. And he went in and spoke to Hilly, and we got an audition, and then he liked us, and, I'm playing, for years up until I was in the Waldos, and it seemed like, wow, you don't have to be a rock star to play CBGBs or anywhere. You just have to have a band. Because when I was playing there, like my mother would play cards at this Bay Terrace country club, the pool club, and ladies and these old Jewish women. I'm Jewish, and and she says, "Oh, so and so's son-in-law is in a band too, like me. He's in a band because he's in some little band, like I'm in a punk rock band." And I go, "Who is he?" And I figured he's a neighborhood guy. And she goes, "I don't know. I'll find out his name." So she writes down the name the next time they're playing cards. And this is like, I just played the audition showcase at CBGB's, and I think I'm like on the right track. And
it's like a Monday night audition, right?
We got called back. So she brings me the name of the person who her friend's son-in-law is, who also is in a band. And she wants to know if this is what I do too. And the name was Eric Bloom, Blue Oyster Cult.
Oh shit!
And this is what you do. I go sort of, but we do it to 10 people and they do it to 20,000
to 20,000 people. Yeah, that's funny. Wow. Blue Oyster Cult never played CBs.
No, they were big.
No, they were before that. They were
very big.
They were playing arenas by that point.
Yeah, when all that was going on. Yeah. So
hey, you guys, every time I think of Blue Oyster, I just think about that Saturday Night Live sketch with
more cowbell.
Yeah.
No cowbell.
There's probably people who never heard of them. That's their only reference point. And which is great because maybe people say like, "Wow, I never knew who they were," and now I buy their records or listen to them. But
I forget which member it was. I read something in the last year or something. Somebody in Blue Oyster Cult was complaining about it, saying like, "Yeah, now we're known for that."
But it's
amazing.
But amazing. No one knew who they were. It's not that no one knew who they were, but like, there's, believe me, if someone mentioned your podcast on Saturday Night Live, good or bad, you'd be happy.
Sure.
It boosts sales, like, and it's also puts you in the discussion, which I think is, kind of necessary today with, particularly now when you can't play gigs and you can't do a lot of things, it launches you, without you having to do the legwork. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, social media can make a star out of anybody, as we all know.
Yeah.
And now, especially since you're not playing live, they haven't really relaxed those rules yet. You got to keep your name out there in some way, shape, or form. That's why a lot of bands have done streaming things.
Yeah.
Even like even famous acts like Kiss, right? They just did that New Year's Eve thing in Dubai, and I heard they made a ton of money on that.
Yeah, well,
that's
good because they're probably hurting for cash.
No, I don't think so.
Hey, Mike, let me ask you a question. That trivia question. Where did that trivia question happen on Jeopardy?
Oh, okay. Yeah, Barry. I don't know if you saw. I posted that.
So that was like
on the rock show.
What is punk rock? Is that what the question?
That would be the answer. Yeah, it was
That's
like
the answer.
It was like Iggy Pop, Lou Reed, and Joey Ramone are considered the godfathers of what rock genre?
Yeah.
Right, punk rock. Yeah, of course, people crack me up. They put like rap. They put like rock, some rockabilly. I was like, no.
I saw that. That was fantastic.
Right. You'd be surprised. The guys that are on Jeopardy. The screening is very exhaustive, and you gotta, like, it's not just like that guy that won a couple of years ago, because I actually was watching it then. I never watched it. The Vegas guy, I can't think of his name. But you got to know a lot about a lot of things. And to me, like, we would answer all the music questions 100%, but if they asked me about Shakespeare, I would get bounced off. But these guys.
What cracks me up sometimes is they'll have a guy on. He'll be winning for a week or whatever, and he'll have all these, answers for everything. And then there might be a question like that.
But
and he can't get.
They don't know who Mickey. They don't know who Mickey Mantle is, or something like that. like to me is like, doesn't everybody know who wore number 7? It's like it was just like, I have an older brother, and and we're Yankee fans, and I thought, doesn't everyone know that? And it's like, but we grew up in different circumstances.
It's just generational. I mean, my wife's kids are all in their 20s, okay? And they don't know anything of what I'm talking about. It's just like, are you kidding me? They'd look at me like I'm 100 years old. I'm only 51.
The thing is, this sort of circle of, the like the second generation Ramones fans and the third generation Ramones fans, like I'm communicating now with these like Thunders fans who love Walter because of the show. So these girls are in their 20s, and I figured, like, I thought punk rock would be maybe a 1-2 year thing and it would be gone and forgotten. And now, like 40 years later, people, like LAMF came out over 4 years ago, and it's not, they're going to re-release it at the Record Store Day this June, and obviously it's not going to be, they'll probably release it fast.
Based on the original mix that was supposedly found.
But the thing is, the fact that I'm happy because, like, hey, I'll buy it again. I need another copy of it.
I mean, I've got like 7
well,
copies
there's been
of it, like in different
but
formats.
it's like, it's like I like the packaging, and like when they re-released the CD thing, and I got some buttons that I didn't have anymore, and it's fun. It's definitely
what's great about, I don't know, the original punk scene, the 70s punk scene, is people keep rediscovering it. And the good thing is a lot of these people are still around. Okay, unfortunately, we've lost quite a few, but a good majority of these people are still around. And they could talk about it, and they could explain. Like we did a great interview a few months ago with Glenn Matlock. Now I know Glenn is part of your show this coming up, right?
And
let me tell you, let me just tell you what a guy he is. Okay, I was blown away. He was in London, okay, and we were going to do it video, and we were supposed to, I don't know, I forget what time it was because of the time difference, but we were supposed to start at a certain time, and he emailed me like 20 minutes earlier and was like, I can't make it. I am stuck in a huge traffic jam in London. So he goes, I was like, oh, okay, do you want to postpone? He says, I could pull over and just do the interview with you on my phone. And I said, okay. So he did the fucking interview with us in his Jaguar. Wow. Okay, pulled over to the side of the road. All right, and it was one of the best interviews we ever did. And I was just pretty amazed by it.
Well, I don't think people realize, and I know you do, but how many things his hands are on, not just the Sex Pistols and not just Iggy, like he played, in a version of the Faces, and, the Rich Kids were very underrated, and like, he's a great songwriter and a great bass player and a great, he's had a, and he's a good guy, it's like I, not just my experience with him, like, Glenn, can you do this video? And of course, say yes. But, he, it's like, I like the guys, you appreciate their appreciation of the people that are significant. He's, and he's a guy that's very successful, and he's, just a nice, he's one of the guys. He's great.
Yeah. I mean, and he gave us an hour-long interview and was very candid about things and open, and it was great. And you're right, he is kind of underappreciated, underrated.
Yeah. Well, I saw him, the last time I saw him play, he was down in West Palm Beach, which is like a half hour from me, and there was nobody there. And I'm talking to a friend of mine who actually would play, this guy named Charlie Pickett, who's a Florida sort of, I call him a rock legend, but that's what I would use as a guitar player most of the times when Walter would come to Florida to play with me. And he goes, I can't believe this guy is so great, so significant, and nobody's here. And that was, the sad thing, because, it's like, this is a great guy and is underappreciated significantly.
Well, in Florida, that might be. When he comes up to New York and he plays Bowery Electric or in '96 when the Pistols came back, and I went to see them at Roselands. That place was
yeah.
packed
Well,
to
New
the,
York is that Florida. Honestly, I would do terrible with Walter, and fan wise, and Florida.
yeah.
It's there's a lot of people in Florida, but they don't come. They don't. Bands don't tour Florida for probably.
It's not a big place to stop.
It's
Yeah,
geographically not good. It's like I don't. It's
right.
like you go to
Out
you
of the
go to
way.
Orlando, you don't come to my coast. It's just the way it is. But
Mm.
yeah, Glenn is great, and I'm very happy to have him on board because he played with Walter, and he's a very significant artist.
Definitely, definitely. Now, I want to get into what you got coming up next week, but before we do that, when we had our long conversation the other day on the phone, we talked about our favorite band,
Yeah,
which is the Ramones, both of us. Okay, and you've got some fantastic stories. I don't know if you want to share a couple that whichever you think is decent. But I know you played with Dee Dee and the Spiky
briefly.
Tops.
Yeah.
But you were friends with Dee Dee before that, right?
Me and Dee were good friends. I thought he knew me from being in the Waldos the first time I was in the Waldos, and he really didn't. And then we ran into each other, not far from. We ran into each other in Flushing, and he was living in Whitestone, and I was in Bayside, and we exchanged numbers. And then, I figured, well, he doesn't. We became friends, and then we became great friends. And I would, I wasn't playing at the time, and I would go to a lot of Ramone shows with him, and spent a lot of time with him. And I have to say, the fact that the Waldos got back together when I rejoined them was 100% Dee Dee, because we were I had hurt myself. Those days I could only do one thing at a time, and that was either I'd play hockey or I'd play the bass. I couldn't. I didn't have the mind to do one or the other, and I hurt myself playing hockey, so I couldn't play hockey. So I go, I got a bass. It was Dee Dee's bass. I had his Fender bass. No, actually, I didn't have it then. I'm sorry, I got it later on. But so I start playing again, and we're in the back of the Ramones van towards the end of '87, I think, or '86 or '87. '87 it must have been. And like they're talking about New Year's Eve, and Johnny says, "Who's going to open for us?" They're playing somewhere on the island, and he goes, "Who's going to open for us New Year's Eve?" And I didn't think Dee Dee could react this fast, and it was dark in the back of the van, and I elbow him. And I point to myself. And I said,
cool.
And Dee Dee pops up and says, "Let's have Walter open up." And Johnny goes, "Walter's not playing. He doesn't even have a band and anymore." And Dee Dee goes, No, they've been rehearsing. They sound great. I heard them." And he goes, "Okay." So then I call Walter the next day, and I go, "We're playing New Year's Eve." And he goes, "With who?" I go, "With the Waldos." And we used the same drummer that was in the band when I was in them originally. And then JF, who's going to be playing next week, I never even met the guy. We did run one rehearsal, and that's how the Waldos got back together.
Well, was Charlie Sox the
Charlie
drummer?
was the original drummer. He lived around the corner from me.
Yeah.
And he was in,
Good guy.
We were in one of the bands I didn't say. It was a band called the Hedonists. He was my drummer in that. Charlie was a great friend. We lived, just around the corner from each other, and that was the original band. He played until unfortunately he passed away.
Yeah, I remember when that happened. That's when I was hanging out with them a little bit. Okay, I was at a lot of the Continental shows. I'd hang out in the back with them. When the single came out and the album came out,
I played the memorial for Charlie with the Weapons. We weren't really a band then. But, we opened because we weren't even really a band at the time. But I figured like all of us were friends with them, were bandmates at one point, and we were just neighborhood guys, and we were all friends with Charlie, and it really bothered me because he was the first of my friends to go. Unfortunately, he wasn't the last. But his sister I'm friends with on Facebook, and it was like Siblings Day last week or whatever, and posted a picture, and I hadn't looked at a picture of him. He's been gone almost 30 years. It's terrible.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's like 90. Got to be
Yeah.
91,
Because I remember
maybe.
one of the last times I
Yeah.
saw
Wow.
him, we went to Jerry's wake during a weekday. You know, I was working. We had the mornings off that day, so we met at the in Flushing. You know, at the same place where Johnny got late. You know, so
Yeah.
we met, and like
Yeah.
Johnny's was elaborate and pop, you know, and very attended. And Jerry's on a weekday morning, there was no one there. And I think that may have been the last time I saw Charlie, you know, at Jerry's wake. You know, me, Charlie, and actually Johnny Thunder's sister was there. She asked me who I was and why I was there. So I had to kind of explain who I was. Not that you,
What was her name?
yeah, I think so,
Mary, right?
Marianne or something like.
Yeah. Mary
You know, she
Ann.
was
Yeah,
very
Mary
nice,
Ann.
but she was curious of my connection. But you know, and but that was, you know, for all I think the last time I saw Charlie, you know, but yeah, he went shortly thereafter. You know, it's
Yeah. Yeah. It had to be like late
yeah,
91,
yeah.
early 92, something like that. Did you go to
He-
Thunder's funeral?
I went to the wake with I went to the wake on a Sunday with Walter Law, Richie Law, and Charlie.
Yeah.
Remember,
Yeah.
like we picked up when Walter was living in Flushing, him and Richie, and we went, and that was really elaborate because a lot of flowers and, you know, I don't know if you went,
Mm-hmm.
but Johnny was wearing looked like the similar shirt that he's wearing on the So Alone album, and he looked, you know, he looked like his album cover, only a lot more white makeup, you know, kind of weird,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I didn't go. I was gonna go to Walter's in August, and then I decided last minute
yeah, I did. I
not
have
to go. I just
some
was like, I didn't want to
you
see
know,
him
I
that
wanted to
way, you know?
go, and then like my family, because I had some, you know, some immune issues from old chemo, and they were saying, oh, you know, you shouldn't travel now because, you know, COVID and all this stuff. And it was way before vaccinations, and you know, the only good thing about me not going, I felt so helpless, and that's kind of when I started the process for the tribute that's going to be next week already, but you know, because of, you know, my disappointment in not paying my respects, I figured I have to do something, and this is what I'm doing.
Sure.
You know,
I
I
mean,
don't like,
absolutely.
you know, I don't, I like to
Uh,
be, you know, I like to be active in things, and you know,
well, this isn't your first time promoting a show. What was the one I think last year or the
well,
year
I've done
before
a
you
lot
did,
of
right?
shows, you know, in Florida where I live and New York, but the most
Mm.
significant show, you know, and I do a lot of these with Steve Krebs, you know, but like we would have
Yeah.
like, you know, we had Bowery, we had Annabella from Bow Wow Wow, we had Richie Ramone, we would do some other things, and like, but in like almost 10 years ago, I put together what was called the Waldos, a 30-year habit. I put together the anniversary of the
Right.
Waldos, and the reason
Wow.
I did it, it's, you know, because, and I know knock on people who do things for dead people, but I wanted to acknowledge Walter when he still could appreciate it, and that was a very big undertaking for me at the time because I never, you know, did something like that, and it was, you know, it was a great experience, and it was a really great night, you know, with very similar artists who are going to be at Bowery Electric are going to be there this time, and then everybody went through Walter. So, you know, and, you know, not to get into the questioning I'm getting on social media, why isn't this guy playing and why isn't that guy playing? The reality, everyone who played during the anniversary was because Walter wanted them there, and similarly,
Right.
most of them are here because I know Walter would have wanted them here. It's not a popularity.
Is it pretty much
Yeah,
the same
yeah,
lineup or just
almost.
about?
I actually got that popped up as a Facebook memory, and I looked at it and I go, wow, it's the same thing essentially.
Well, give us some names, Barry, so everybody has an idea.
Well, at the Bowery Electric, which is going to be recorded on Monday, it's the Waldos. You know, whoever was most of the living Waldos. Okay, some other bands like the opening bands were bands Walter was in. So the Hurricanes, the Blessed, and the Heroes. The Hurricanes were a band Walter was in briefly with Billy Rath and Lee Crystal, who went Billy Rath and the Heartbreakers. Lee Crystal went on to Joan Jett. Barry Ryan was the co-frontman who ended up in the Rockettes. So he's playing a few songs. So the other band, The Blessed, where Walter recorded with The Blessed, with Howie Pyro and Brad Barnett and Billy Stark. Billy Stark is the only one who's going to be there, but they'll do some Blessed songs. The Heroes were a band that Walter and Richie Lore co-fronted, and so I have Donna Destry from singing lead because she has sung with Richie Lore and she did his songs very well. So I thought she would be a good fit for this, and she's a perfect fit for it. She's great talent, and so that's who we have in house. And as far as the virtual guests, it's I'm very excited and proud of the lineup. Virtual guests, you have Clem Burke and Frank Infante from Blondie, Smutty Smith and Levi Dexter from Levi and the Rockettes, Glenn Matlock, Sammy Yappa, Legs McNeil, Bob Gruen, Mick Rossi from Slaughter and the Dogs. All these guys had played with Walter, let's see, who am I missing? Let me cheat and look at a sheet. Howie Pyro, who I mentioned. Jesse Mallon is going to also sing live. Ivan Julian has sent in a video. He, from Richard Hell. Richard Hell. Let's see, who else is going to be there? I'm trying to think. Who would I leave out? Who's sending me something who is unusual. I think people say, wow, I didn't know he liked Walter Lore. I go, everyone liked Walter Lore. Mike Skill from the Romantics is sending me a video.
Oh, I could see that.
And he's like, so he goes, we talked, and then the time went, and he goes, is it too late? And I go, no, you could send it in. I got a couple more days. And also I got a video from Philippe Marcade from the Senders.
From the Senders, they were good friends.
He sent in a beautiful video. Some of these guys, on Jane County, she sent in a great video. So it's like,
excellent.
to a guy like me, everybody I have records of. I got Blondie, I got the Sex Pistols, I got the Hanoi Rocks. It's like these to me, Romantics. It's all, those are. I think, I don't want to be too cliche and say it's a who's who of punk rock, but it's a who's who of punk rock.
It is. You could say it. And you're fans of these people, and it's great.
Well, it's also like the thing is they're so, like the whole thing about punk rock is like everyone is accessible and no one's like above us or below us. And like the thing is, it's not like I could call up Mick Jagger and say, oh, I want to, or Paul McCartney and say, oh, well, you do this, and you couldn't even get through. But these guys, I know a lot of these guys, but some of them I don't know. And it's not a hindrance because they respond and they say yes or they say no. But I even asked Richard Hell, to represent the Heartbreakers. And he very politely declined. And, I could go into what he said, which is not a bad thing, but I did exhaust every possibility, I thought.
Yeah. Well, hell is kind of reclusive when it comes to the music end of his career. But I know what you're talking about.
He said he hasn't spoken to Walter in years. They never were close. And he said if he would do it, he would think the public would think he's a hypocrite. And you know what? I can't argue with that.
You can respect that.
I would have loved,
believe
me, I had in my head, well, he's going to do the original Chinese rocks and I'll be a genius. And I'm keep dreaming, I guess.
Yeah, with those extra words. And
it would be nice,
but yeah. Now, you were the original bass player of the Waldos. How did that come about?
How it came about was in that summer, I was in a band called the Hedonists. Richie Lore, the Hedonists. My first band was the Hedonists, and then me. Yeah,
with Walter's brother.
we didn't have a singer anymore, and Richie didn't have a band, so we became friends. And we did some of my material from the Hedonists, but mostly Richie material. And Walter wasn't doing anything; he just started working a regular, straight job, a day job, that ultimately, really turned into something magnificent. But this was at the beginning stages of it. And Walter had nothing to do really, and nothing to do musically, so he would come by and like jam a little. And I remember our first gig we played. I remember going to the house, and he goes, "Walter's going to jam with us," and I couldn't believe it. And I remember in the living room, we went through like Chinese Rocks or Junkie Business or 7 Day Weekend or something. And I go, "I'm actually going to play on stage with one of the Heartbreakers," and I couldn't believe it. And then he kept jamming with us, and then we got what I mentioned, that offer to go to Sweden and Finland. And when that didn't happen, he, out of loyalty, and also he liked us. He said, I'm gonna start a band, and you guys are my band. And that became the Waldos. Wow. And then he was doing work at that time on the Ramones' Too Tough to Die, and
he was playing like lead guitar and stuff.
Yeah, so he was a hired hand essentially, and with that, we got to open, like, our first gig we opened for them, our third gig we opened for them. So it's like, and then a couple of gigs down the line we opened for them. So I figured, like, well, we're the Ramones opening act half the time, and it really was great. I get to see the Ramones, and I get to be on the bill, and it's like, no one was happier than me.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second. What's your favorite Ramones album?
It's a tough.
It's a tough one. But if you had to
I like Rocket
one.
to Russia. That was probably the most significant to me.
Right. Okay. I actually would agree. I would say it's number one.
Yeah.
With Leave Home.
Leave Home, I prefer to the first record. More pop song.
Me too. Yeah. I mean, stuff like California Sun and What's Your Game, and the first version of She Is a Punk Rocker.
So, that's great. Beach Boys.
Yeah, right. Susie is a headbanger.
But then again, like, someone posted this album a couple of days ago, girl who has a record store somewhere on a social media, and she posted Pleasant Dreams, and not a popular
great
record,
album.
but it's underappreciated. I think the sound on it, the drums, I love the backing vocals,
They had what happened was, the Spectre album before that didn't break them. Okay. And Saya had said, listen, we're going to go with one more outside producer. Yeah. They didn't really want to do it.
I actually
they ended up getting
like Graham Gouldman better. I like it better than Spectre.
You can make that argument. You can definitely, I could agree with that. There's a lot of strong.
Every song is great.
Yeah. And actually, the two albums, End of the Century and Pleasant Dreams, all have strong songs, and you could tell because when Rhino came out in the '90s with the remastered versions of these albums, they threw on demos from both those albums. I don't know if you've ever heard the demo to like that. Danny Says.
It's like, was it like Touring, which ended up on a later record?
Touring started, Touring was an outtake off of Pleasant Dreams.
Which I never heard the original until a couple of years ago when I rebought it.
And you know what? You know why it didn't make the album? Because they felt it sounded too much like Rock and Roll High School.
Well,
it does sound like Rock and Roll High School.
You can make that argument about a lot of things and a lot of bands. People say, "Oh, everything sounds the same." And if you don't really know the difference, but
I've gotten into straight up fist fights about the Ramones as a teenager. Okay, when people say, this was the early '80s, and people were worshiping Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and whatever. And if you liked the Ramones, you were free.
You were,
okay. No, you were. you know, I remember in school getting into straight up fist fights about it. And now, look, they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Everybody loves them. You see the shirts everywhere, though most people probably wear the shirts for
Well, yeah,
fashion. They
them
don't
and
even
the
know who the
them and the
band is, but
misfits,
still.
but
Well, yeah, the
you know, but
Misfits
like
too. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
you know, what's the tragedy of the Ramones is that no one lived long enough to see their,
For them to see that.
which is, you know, they were all, you know, and like,
Yeah.
you know, of course, you read a lot, and people read too much, and like, you know, we discussed it, you know, like, Johnny's personality, which wasn't in existence before social media, and
Yeah.
no one knew
cared
about it,
about that.
you know, and it wasn't, you know, it's like, you know, like, you know, we've all had jobs, and someone is the boss in a job, you know, this like, oh, he was cheap.
Yeah.
And like, that's why Linda Ramone and Mickey Lee have money, because he was cheap. You know, he was prudent.
Yeah.
You can't spend what you don't have.
Well, you know, they didn't like to, you know, Johnny didn't like to stay in hotels and things like that. If they played New Jersey or they played Connecticut or they played sometimes Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, they go home after the gig. And a lot of bands, just out of, you know, whatever, would be like, no, we're going to waste money on a hotel room. So he had a rule with that. I think it was like 5 hours or something like that. And we had to go.
Well, the furthest I drove with them,
drive.
and it was probably close to that, it was like 3-4 hours to Lehigh University or college in Pennsylvania. They were on the bill with the Romantics, and you know, that was a pretty long ride for one show. And you know, and like, you know, Dee Dee was asleep most of the trip, both ways.
Yeah.
And he'd like pop up and he'd say, Monty, how much longer? And Monty would, of course, yell 5 minutes, and Dee Dee would close his eyes and fall back asleep, regardless if we were in New York or Jersey or halfway, you know, most of the way in Pennsylvania. Yeah. You know, but yeah, no, it's like, you know, I thought it was the most exciting time in my life when I got to see them and spend time with them. You know,
I had one. I've told this story a couple of times on the show, but I had one show, and I saw them about 50 times. But one show where they gave me a ride in the van, and it was coming from Trenton City Gardens back to the city. So I was sitting. It was me, my girlfriend at the time, and a friend of hers. Well, actually, she was a friend of mine. That was like studying to be a journalist. So she was kind of interviewing Joey a little bit in the back, and she used to work for Z-Rock. Remember Z-Rock?
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
She worked for them in the radio station, and she was doing like a journalism course or something. So we were in the back, and we were just having a long conversation. And this was about 1991, I think it was. And CJ was in the band. Dee Dee had left. And in the van, it was Joey, Johnny, and Marky, and Monty. Okay, and it's funny because when you watch the End of the Century movie and they talk about the infamous van and how everybody was divided into little areas in the van and that's where they stayed, it's true. And you know, Johnny wanted to listen to WFAN. Okay, and so you had that. You had a little bit of like oldies radio on at a couple of points during the trip, you know, CBS FM or something. And then, you know, I'm in the back with Joey talking music, and I asked him straight up, I'm like, what are you listening to these days? And he says that he's been, and I'll never forget this, he was spending a lot of time catching up on stuff that he hadn't heard from over through the 80s. And I said, like, what? And he's like, well, I'm listening to the Stray Cats a lot. And I said, I love the Stray Cats. I've seen them live. They're great, you know. And he says, yeah. He goes, I don't know why, but I really didn't get into them much when they, you know, started. He goes, but I loved them. And I go, well, what's your favorite song? And he's like, I Won't Stand in Your Way. The ballad, you know, the ballad song, great song. And I'll never forget that, him talking about that. And and he said that he finally got into the Raspberries.
Yeah, that's surprising.
And that was like from the 70s, you know. Yeah. Oh yeah, you think he would have liked them. But I think to be honest with you, probably in 73 or or so when the Raspberries were big. He was jamming. He was in Sniper, right? He was probably hanging out at Coventry and in Queens, and also he probably missed some of that stuff, But anyway, I don't mean to cut you off. You were saying how the Waldos, you were playing with Richie, and then you
right, exactly.
joined up with Walter, right? Okay.
Well,
and how long did you play with them for?
It's the first band our first gig was right before New Year's at the end of '83 with the Ramones and the Champs in Poughkeepsie. And by the spring, about June, May or June, we played at the Irving Plaza, and we just stopped playing. It wasn't like it broke up. We just stopped playing. Yeah.
Was Walter just busy with work or something?
He didn't have much of a job then. It was new to him. And we weren't really, it wasn't like, the Waldos got very popular after my second time. And then we weren't, we did well when we opened for the Ramones, but otherwise nobody really was really too interested.
Yeah, and that was before the Continental. That hadn't been there yet. But they seemed to be the house band in Continental once that opened up.
Yeah, Continental was great.
I missed all that stuff, but it's sort of, be popular.
Yeah. I mean, it's I got to tell you, it's great you're doing this for Walter. He was, loved by everybody. You never heard a bad thing about Walter from people. He was always nice, and people were very complimentary. And he died so fast. Like it just came out of the blue, and everybody was shocked last year when that happened. So it's great that you're doing this. Let's talk about how we can see it, because you're recording it on Monday, right? And there's going to be a partial live audience. I guess that's all
the
sold
two
out,
sets are sold out. They were limited seating. Obviously it's social distancing. Regulations.
Yeah.
But on starting on Thursday the 22nd. It'll be streamed. The virtual guests plus the.
Yes. 8 p.m. I understand.
You can get it through rollinglivestudios.com or the BoweryElectric.com. And partial proceeds are going to St. Jude, Children's Research Hospitals. And the reason for that choice is people question that as if it's not a great organization, because it is. But, I personally donate to them every month. But Walter's family at the wake requested, in lieu of flowers, to donate to St. Jude's. So it was a no-brainer. It's not like, we're not getting paid to do the gig. And we figure we'll do something charitable out of a situation. And, I feel, very good about the whole situation, with the Waldos and the other people have all been really cooperative. And, the reality, this is going to be the last time most of these guys, me especially, are going to get together and play these songs. It's
probably. Wow. Okay. All right. So I want to thank you, Barry, for coming on. And you've been a fantastic guest, gave a lot of good information. Before we go, how much is it going to cost to stream this?
I think it's about $15.
I can't beat that. Fantastic. Spend a Thursday evening watching
2-hour show.
Some great bands, do some great music.
Besides the music, the videos, and I've seen most of them, because most of them sent them directly to me, and they're very heartfelt and they're funny, and some of them play a little music, but some of them just speak about Walter, and it's emotional and it's beautiful and it's a great rock and roll evening. And it's unfortunate to do things for dead people, but you have to, because they're so significant to us always.
And Walter was for 45 years, I mean, he was around like almost my whole life. You know, he was an influence musically for me and you.
Yeah.
And you were lucky enough to know him and play with him, and that's fantastic. And now you're doing this tribute. Yeah, that's great. All right, Barry. So thank you for coming on, Barry Apfel, and I will be in touch with you soon. And we should have this up in a couple of days. As soon as it's up, you got the link, and we'll send, share it everywhere. And good luck with
Thanks
the
for having
tribute
me on. I
next
appreciate
week.
it. It's great speaking with you guys.
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
We could probably get the link to put it on the podcast, right?
Before, Sure. We'll advertise the thing. We'll put it on the Rock Show group page. Get a couple thousand people to look at it.
But thank you guys. Have a good rest of the night. Thank you again. Take care. Bye-bye.
You too. Take care now.
Thank you. Have a good one.